Hello there, everyone. Thank you for clicking on the chills today. In this episode, we're going to talk about South Africa and one of its capitals, Pretoria, because there are three capital cities: Pretoria, Cape Town, and Bloemfontein. And here are a few more facts about the country. There are 11 official languages. South Africa is the world's biggest producer of gold and platinum. And also, the colorful mix of cultures gives South Africa its nickname Rainbow Nation. And we'll learn more about South Africa and its culture from Abrie. Hello, Abrie. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice talking to both of you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking the time and sharing about your hometown.
Yeah, I love sharing about my hometown and about South Africa. So you're welcome to ask any questions and I will answer it for you.
Awesome. And Aubrey, could you please talk about yourself first, what you do and where you're from?
Yes, well, I was born in Pretoria in South Africa, and I've been living here for the last 60 odd years. I'm a town planner by trade. I am the CEO of a company called Multiprof Property Intelligence. So we a town planning company, architectural company, and we provide information on properties to the property industry in mostly in Pretoria. Pretoria is a name basically is a part of Swane, so basically it's called Swane now as well since 1994, and so yeah, we deal with properties from a town planning point of view basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not married, so I live on my own in one of the eastern suburbs of Pretoria. I've been living in the same house for 37 years, and yes, and I bought offices for my company less than a kilometer away, so no problem with traffic.
Awesome. According to Wikipedia, there are 11 official languages in South Africa, and which one do you use mostly?
Okay. Yes, there's 11 official languages, of which I know only two. The one is my home language is Afrikaans, and it developed out of Dutch 350 years ago, if I remember correctly. The Dutch came to the Cape of Good Hope, and that's the most southern point of South Africa. And from there on, later on, the language changed with the influence of some European languages. Dutch, we said, then French, German, and also a few other languages. So a new language developed over the last 300 years. It is fairly close related to Flemish, and we can understand each other if we talk slowly. But then the business language is English, and all business is done in English. But then there's also the other traditional African languages, and there's various tribes that speak different languages, of which some are a bit similar and some is quite a bit different. They're fairly difficult languages to learn if you didn't learn it from when you were small. So unfortunately, I tried a few years ago to learn one of the languages, but unfortunately it was not successful. And most people in South Africa speak at least two languages, some even more. But yeah, their mother tongue differ quite a bit.
Wow. And how many languages do you study at school?
We studied only two, either, well, Afrikaans and English. And most of the children will study two languages, of course, their home language and then typically English would be included in the school curriculum.
Hmm. And I'm curious, how does the media cover so many languages?
Um, Most of the media is in English. Of course, the local areas have their local media that would cover the specific language of choice in the area. Um, but yeah, it is most of it would be done in English, except in rural areas where you only have people that speak the specific traditional language for the area, and we are quite isolated from that in the cities. We don't have that much knowledge of what exactly happened in the very rural areas where people only speak one language, and it would be a traditional language. But most of the business and newspapers and stuff would be either in English, or otherwise small areas that would be in a different local language.
Hmm. Interesting. And what's the common way of greeting people in Pretoria?
Well, again, of course, each language will have its own way, but in Afrikaans, that's my home language, you will have in the mornings you will greet somebody goeiemôre, that would be good morning, and at night you will say good evening, goeienaand. But most of the time it's just hi, and we have lost some of the formalities, so there's a lot of mixing between the languages and English, so lots of people will use the English form of greeting, or then if you're just with a specific group of people, you will use the local language. In Pretoria used to be very Afrikaans, so it was we grew up almost entirely Afrikaans, and it's only after 1994 really that there's more integration, but there's still a lot of people that speak the same language tend to stick together. So most of our interaction that we have is still with people that speak Afrikaans. So we will do the goeiemôre of goeiemiddag of goeienaand.
Ah, so means good, right? I think.
Goeie, ja. Goeie is good. So good morning. Goeiemôre, goeiemiddag. Middag is afternoon, and evening is aand. So goeienaand, goeiemiddag, goeiemôre.
Wow. Uh, it's pretty much the same here in Tajikistan. We don't use only one language. We use our own language, Tajik, and also a lot of Russian words. So we also use both.
Oh, so it's familiar. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, nice. And what about the handshake or hugs when people greet each other?
Yeah. That have obviously changed a lot with COVID. Uh, but, uh, you know, and it have also changed over the years. In the very traditional Afrikaner environments that was mostly on farms and things like that, people was used to basically kissing each other on the lips.
Wow.
Yes, if it was somebody that you remotely knew, it was the habit. That was not everybody was not very fond of it, but that was the good way that it was done. That have disappeared slowly but surely. Men obviously would mostly greet each other with a handshake. But if it's in family, people would often, kiss each other Uh, but that habit have slowly but surely died out a bit. So mostly now men would shake hands, and women might do the same, or they might give a little type of a hug, depending on the relationship that you have with the person that you're greeting. Obviously, in COVID, everybody just touch elbows or talk from a distance, you know.
Wow, interesting. And what do you think might surprise foreigners if they visit your hometown?
Well, one of the things that surprise people often, and that's not only about my hometown but about South Africa, is the fact that it is not closely as dangerous as people expect it to be.
Mm.
There's a lot of negative ideas about South Africa and its safety. And whenever I host couch surfers or people that I have taken couch surfers on tours and trips through South Africa often, and the common thread was that, you know, they were prepared for this very dangerous country, and it was not the case at all. Like any country, you have areas in every city, every big city, I'm sure in your country as well. There's certain areas where you don't go. There's certain things that you don't do. You know, you won't, if you go to town, you won't wear jewelry that is visible in any country. And South Africa is an extreme country of poverty on the one hand and wealth on the other hand. So in any country where you have this situation, of course, people is always on the lookout for easy targets and pickpocketing, and unfortunately, even sometimes, you know, using force. So yeah, it's not advisable, of course, to walk at night in dangerous areas, and it's not advisable to show any wealth, and it's not advisable to look like a tourist, because tourists are often easy targets. But in general, if you stick to basic safety, it is quite a safe country. The other surprise is often there's the belief that in Africa wild animals roam in the cities.
Yeah.
And you will find a lion outside your door. Now, of course, that is not true at all. We have wonderful game parks with wild animals, and it is a special place to visit. But I think about 250 years ago, perhaps you would have found a lion outside your house, but long gone. So we are quite an advanced economy. We are fairly well developed. We have above average good national roads. Unfortunately, our the smaller roads and whatever have been neglected over the last 20 odd years, but our main national roads are of very high standards, and it's fairly easy to reach all the metropolitan areas with very good roads.
Oh, nice. Could you please explain about the capital? Because I'm still confused. It says there are 3 capitals,
Sometimes even 4.
sometimes even 4. And can you explain this one?
Yes, I can. Well, basically, South Africa before 1994 consisted of 4 provinces. And each province had a capital city, and each capital was assigned a type of a function. and that stuck a bit, although there's not that much functionality in it anymore. Pretoria is, of course, the one capital, and that was the capital of the old area that was called Transvaal, and that is basically where most of the government departments are located. That's also where the union buildings are located, that for many years and still now form part of government's headquarters. So that is mostly in Pretoria. And then Cape Town is where Parliament is. So we have this very expensive system whereby for half of the year all the politicians would be in the Cape Town area, and their departments would be up in Gauteng, in Pretoria, and every now and then there's talk that they want to consolidate it, because it really is such an expensive system to have two main capitals whereby people commute on a very regular basis between the two. But I think the way I know politicians, there's lots of advantages for them having this dual system, because they will benefit from it by being able to choose where they are at any stage. Of course, Cape Town is a beautiful city, I think one of the most beautiful cities in the world. So people love going there, and yeah, I think they enjoy flying up and down, and I think sometimes they have a family here and they have a family there, and they might not know about each other as well. So there's not a lot of support for the idea to abandon one of the capitals. And then there's the other two capital cities. Is the one was basically where the High Court used to be, and that is Bloemfontein in the Free State. And then the other province was KwaZulu-Natal, and they also had a capital. So those are still technically capital cities, but most of it is only in name. There's not much of the functionality left. I think that was originally there. I think the idea was in 1910, South Africa became a union with the four provinces, and I think the idea is that they didn't want to advantage any of the provinces, so they just decided, okay, let's have four and then everybody is happy. But there's not much of the functionality left of the two. So Pretoria and Cape Town is still major cities that deserves or that can be capital cities.
Yeah. So when people ask you what is the capital of South Africa, you say you name four of them?
No. Well, I don't think many of the younger people even would know about the fact that we have four. I think most people will start with Pretoria and maybe add Cape Town. I'll be surprised if lots of younger people even know about the fact that the other two is officially also capital cities.
If you could choose three aspects of your culture to put in time box for the future, what would you put in it?
Well, yes, that is now talking about the Afrikaner culture that I'm part of. One of the other, perhaps I can just go back to one of the other aspects that surprised people is that being in Africa, we are light-skinned. most people, especially when I travel overseas as well, and they ask where I'm from, and I say South Africa, they only hear Africa, and they say, "But you're white."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so most people don't know, and we are a small percentage. We only about 5% of the population of South Africa. But yeah, we are a big part of the economy and of the country. So we have a few things that we obviously like to protect, and one of them would be our local method of entertaining and food wise, and that is we call a braai. What would be called a barbecue somewhere else, we have a braai. So we would put a meat on the fire, and we will make what we call pap. Is like a white substance that we eat with the meat, and we also have some salads, and we will have a few beers or something stronger to drink, and that is about one of the most popular things that our culture do, and we even have hijacked a holiday every year that we call a Braai Day. So we love cooking on fire outside, and inviting friends over, and having a braai. So that is one of the things that we that we would obviously like to keep. The second one is obviously our language.
Mm.
That we said is Afrikaans, and it's spoken by quite a few people in South Africa, and not only by the white population. We have a component what we called basically colored people that would be between a mix between black people and white people, and we have a huge proportion in South Africa as well, and most of them also speak Afrikaans. So, but it is a language that is difficult to maintain if you have, you know, so many people that speak English or other languages. The business language is changing to English, and the language of education is also changing to mostly English.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a bit of an uphill battle, as I'm sure with many languages, to make sure that it will survive in the long run. Um, Purely because it's squeezed out from schools and universities, and so eventually it would be nice to put that in a time capsule and make sure that it keep on existing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think then a third one might be our one of the national sports that we have called rugby. I don't know if you know rugby at all. I don't think you play it too much of it in your country, but you might have seen some of it, and that's also quite a part of our heritage.
Yeah.
Although all nationalities and is now participating, but it originated. I think it was for many years basically a national sport of that supported our culture. So I think that. But as I said, everything have been changing the last 30 years, and for the better. But certain things we still relate with as being Afrikaners.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. You covered three main things: the food, the language, and the sport. So, um, I have seen the movie with Matt Damon and Morgan Freeman. the movie is about rugby, and it shows that Nelson Mandela, he supports the sport, and he helps them.
Yes, yeah. I think it was called Invictus, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
The, the movie, yes. And that was made about the World Cup, the first World Cup that we won. And yeah, Nelson Mandela, as you might know, was quite a unique person. And he really did his best to try and reconcile the different people in the country, and it was, of course, a very difficult thing because there was lots of anger, I think, because of the history that was, not something that we are proud of, but,
Hmm.
we all inherited it, and, we didn't have that much say in it, or everybody had say in it. So he did a good job to try and reconcile that. And his role in the World Cup as well, because that was an opportunity also to do some reconciliation, and he played a major part in it, and that is basically what the movie was about. His attempts to reconcile the different factions in South Africa.
Yeah, that's a great movie. And
Yes.
what would you recommend? Let's say if I would go there to South Africa, let's say Pretoria, and
Yes.
where would you recommend to visit that I would feel the culture and that would show me that I'm in Pretoria?
Yes, yeah. Okay, it's not an easy answer. It depends on which culture. As I said, I represent one culture, but we have many cultures now. As many languages as we have many cultures. Of course, that is mingling in any of the cities, basically. So, but in Pretoria, culture-wise, there is a few places that you will visit. The one and the a very unique structure in Pretoria that again is a representative of the history of the Afrikaner in South Africa is the Voortrekker Monument. Now, it's a unique building. It's very recognizable. I don't think there's any other similar building in the world that I've seen. And it was basically built in the 1930s, and that is one of the major places that is visited by tourists and by local people. Of course, now with COVID, we have very little international travelers, so it's quite a problem to maintain and to keep it going. But yeah, that would be from our point of view, an important place. The other place of cultural importance, I would say, is Freedom Park.
Uh-huh.
After 1994, when apartheid was ended and a democratic government came into place, they decided to build this park to commemorate basically the struggle, and it was called Freedom Park. And it consists of various areas that represent the different cultures in South Africa, and it also have information about all the leaders of the struggle. And there's a very nice museum that you can go through that will guide you through some of the history of South Africa, and will give you some insight on the cultures in South Africa.
I see. And for some of our listeners who are not familiar with apartheid, could you please explain what is that?
Well, yes, that is a very unfortunate system that we inherited when I was born. Of course, that was already in place, and we grew up in a system whereby only white people could vote, and there was a system that the government tried to put into place where they would put certain areas aside to create different homelands for the different cultural groups and traditional groups in South Africa. Of course, the white people kept all the most valuable places, and they try to create areas and create industries in remote areas with the idea that all black people should move into that areas and that they can vote there, and then South Africa would have been only a country for white people. Of course, that was like many other similar attempts worldwide, not possible, not practical, and unfortunately, in the process, people that was not white did not have all the privileges that white people have. They could, for instance, not really own any property. They could not they could not have any jobs in government of substance, and yeah, so it was a very unfortunate, unhealthy system, and yeah, it took many years to overthrow that, and it was replaced now with a democracy that have its own challenges. Unfortunately, it is not panning out exactly the way that everybody was hoping it to be. And although we have a democracy now, basically a new elite have established themselves. And so, although apartheid does not exist anymore, it haven't made a big difference to the population on the ground that is still poor. It was just replaced with an elitist black group of politicians that is that is making all the money and not sharing it really with the people that they said they represent.
I see. When is the best time to visit South Africa?
Well, South Africa is obviously a big country, and we have different climate areas. The most southern part, where Cape Town is, and that is the one place in South Africa where everybody wants to go and where you should go. They have rain in winter. On the east coast, they have rain summer and winter, and then in the northern parts, it's a summer rainfall area. So, in general, Cape Town area, March is seen as the best time of the year to go. In winter, and that's obviously for us in June, July, August. It can be cold, wet, raining, and in summer it can be quite windy because it's right at the most southern point of Africa. So you have huge oceans on all sides of it. So it is affected quite a bit by wind. March is a good time to visit any part of South Africa. But South Africa have a very nice climate, and it's almost most of the year is suitable. We often find that our winter is quite mild in general compared to Europe, for instance. So in Pretoria, we never have zero temperatures at night. in winter, a cold day would be, a cold night would be 3 degrees about, and daytime we look at 18 to 20 degrees in winter. Now, for some countries, that is summer temperatures.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then, of course, if you go up further north and especially along the coast, it is almost tropical, subtropical. So it is most of the year, it's fairly comfortable to visit. So it will depend on where you want to go. One of the most visited places, and I think most famous places in South Africa, is obviously the Kruger National Park. You might have heard about that. And that's one of the best parks, I think, in the world where people go to see our wild animals. Now, again, in the winter months is better to go purely because the grass is not that long and it's not that lush. So it's a bit easier to see animals when it's winter time, and it never really get that cold. It is also a bit subtropical there. So for the game park, winter time is a bit better. Summer can be quite hot and very lush and not that easy to see animals. But you can come to South Africa basically any time of the year, and you will find most of the country is good to visit. So it's not it's because it's so big. You can really choose where you want to go, and we don't have harsh temperatures in general. It's fairly mild, and we don't have lots of rain in general, so we don't have monsoons and things like that to consider. So any time of the year there will be areas that is excellent to visit.
Yeah, it's good to know that. And in Tajikistan right now, it's summer, but in South Africa, it's winter, right?
Yes, yeah, we of course, yeah. 2 days ago, I think was midwinter, but our coldest month is July in general, and so we will have a few cold fronts, and that will bring the temperatures down to about 3 degrees at night and 16 or 15 degrees in the daytime. Today, I mean, and it's midwinter basically, it was 7 degrees and about 20 degrees. So it's really very mild. We never get snow in Pretoria. Johannesburg and some of the higher lying areas would once or twice perhaps in a winter get light snow. We don't have we have small areas, high-lying areas that would get more snow, but Lesotho is obviously right in the center of South Africa, and that is quite high above altitude, and they get snow on a more regular basis. But even there, the one ski slope that is there make use of artificial snow.
Oh, wow, artificial snow.
Yes.
All right, anything that we missed you would like to share before we wrap up?
Yes. Well, I think if one look at South Africa, I think it is a fairly large country, but not anything like, of course, your big countries like America and Canada and so on. But we have a big variety of climate areas, of geographical areas, of vegetation. So you can, within one country, really have all the different experiences that you can have all over the world, except perhaps for the Alps and the snow and that we don't have much of. But for the rest, we have anything from from very desert-like areas in the west to tropical areas in the east. And we have a wide variety of cultures. So yeah, it's really a easy place to visit. Unfortunately, our public transport are not that good. So if you visit, it's always advisable to either rent a car or to go on an organized tour. But yeah, you can really experience quite a bit in a fairly short time. And of course, the major attraction would be our wild animals. And we have quite a few national parks where animals are in their natural state. And even in Pretoria, not very far from where I live, there is a nature reserve where you can view quite a few of the animals that is normally found in this area. So yeah, I would encourage people to come and visit and really have a unique experience. It's Africa, but it's also quite civilized in most areas, and much of a first world country for tourists.
Aubrey, thank you so much for sharing all of this. We would spend a lot of time to learn about all of the things that you shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's nice sharing with you. We can keep on for another day or two, but I'm sure this is a good start for people to just get some kind of understanding of South Africa.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot that we didn't cover, and
It's a good start. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. Thank you. Yes, we may in future just do a repeat or a
part two.
more information about. Yes, part two. I like that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aubrey.
Thank you.
How to say goodbye in your language, in Afrikaans?
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens.
Tot ziens, yes. Well done.
Tot ziens then.
Dankie. That is thank you, is dankie. Yes. Okay, bye-bye.